We start with our Philadelphia Eagles, who play for a chance to go to the NFC Championship game on Sunday. And I woke up this morning to a really good article from Tim McManus on ESPN.com about Nick Sirianni. And the headline was something to the effect of the things in public that make everybody question Nick Sirianni, those things do not exist in the locker room. They love Nick Sirianni. And I just want to give, if you didn't read it, it's really, really good. I want to give a couple of little nuggets from it. So first, it was talking about Jordan Mailata, when Jordan Mailata's father was going through a health issue. And Nick called Jordan into his office. Jordan thought he was in trouble. And then he got in there, and Nick Sirianni just asked him how his dad was doing. And it said, Sirianni served as a confidant to Mailata during that period, having sit-downs with him and creating a safe space for Mailata to, quote, to talk and get his feelings out. Jordan said he was very supportive, said if I needed to miss time, I could miss time. That meant the world to me. I love that guy. I'll do anything for Nick, to be honest. Then Rick Lovato said about Nick Sirianni, it's incredible to have a coach like him who cares about each individual on this team like that. He's a special coach. Every team I've been on that's been to the Super Bowl or deep into the playoffs, we've been the tightest of groups, and that's how I feel about this team this year. Then Isaiah Rodgers. You know, he missed his first year here because of the gambling thing, suspended for the entire 2023 season. And Coach Sirianni left him a note, like sort of a long inspirational note about his journey. And Isaiah Rodgers said, the notes aren't just generated, it's something that you find motivational. It's real personal, like you know that he wrote it from the heart. And Isaiah Rodgers packs the note in his travel bag and reads it before every game, the note that Nick Sirianni left for Isaiah Rodgers. He left another one for Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean said, I don't know any NFL coaches doing that. When it comes to being for your players and having the utmost confidence and respect for your players, I think Nick Sirianni is second to none. And you know, it happened for me a couple months ago that I'm a Nick Sirianni guy. And for all of his warts, for the things that we worry about, the in-game decision-making and the yelling at fans and maybe saying something in a press conference that he shouldn't and maybe being a hothead, all of those things, for all those things, he has the number one most important thing. He has emotional intelligence, and he can get the players to play for him. He can get the players to realize what they've done wrong, what they need to do, to come together, to grow together, and to show up ready to play. He is a really, really good coach, and I'm a Nick guy. And I think what we all need to, and this is what we're going to ask, because we know you're a Nick guy, is if you were on the fence, even if you were anti, are you ready to declare yourself now after hearing things like this, seeing the turnaround from this team from last year to this year? Are you ready to declare yourself a Nick guy? You are.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm with you, brother.
Yeah, and this stuff is part of the reason, right?
These are things that I would hear, not necessarily about the personal letters and all that stuff, but when you hear players sort of come into support Nick, this is stuff that I heard about last year. This is stuff that when rumors were swirling about him and whether or not he should be the coach, that you make a few phone calls, you text a few people, or people hear the show and hear what's being discussed, that players want to make sure they put in their vote of confidence for the guy. So I am not surprised that his players feel this way about him. And unlike some fans, and I'm not necessarily condemning fans for it. You know, winning cures all. So when you win, it's a lot easier to tolerate certain things that you didn't tolerate from a player or a coach prior to. But the players don't waver like that. The players were in support of him in the tough times as well. They came to his defense, and nobody wanted to hear it. Oh, they're just saying that. What else are they going to say? They're on the team. It was leaders that supported him. I say this to say that while some people may have a change of heart, and we welcome that. We welcome those that have had a change of heart and can appreciate what Nick Sirianni has done as a coach during his tenure here. I've always said, to me, it's been more than just the X's and O's, right? Play designing, like being this sort of genius of a head coach that enamors everyone. There's a connection there that he has with his players, that he has the ability to sort of get them to buy in. And it doesn't always end in winning. But for the most part, you're going to have a culture that usually sticks together. Now, there's always the chance you have a bad apple or two in the culture. And that's when you got to remove them. Andy's one of the greatest player coaches ever. I don't know how many players that will line up for Andy. Doesn't mean Andy didn't sometimes have some bad apples in the culture, right? But you have to know how to deal with that.
Well, and the other thing I'd say about being a player's coach, because I think people assume that if you're a player's coach, it just means that the coach lets you get away with whatever you want.
That couldn't be the further thing from the truth.
Andy Reid was a player's coach. Andy Reid held you guys accountable.
Man.
It was tough.
First 5 years, he didn't smile.
Yeah.
You didn't know if Andy was happy when we won or not. Like, seriously, like that was Coach Reid, but he wanted to change the culture. So while he could be a player's coach, he was still hard, firm, but he was fair.
And I
was fair. We respected that.
And players always say that about Nick too.
Hard, firm. Coming up at 4:30.
Yeah,
that's right. And 5:50.
And the other thing is like when you ask players what they like about Nick, one of the first things they say is he holds us accountable.
Yep.
He holds us accountable. He holds us. Not he's a good guy. Not he likes the same music. Not all that stuff. So we're going to ask you 215-592-9494. Are you ready to declare yourself a Nick Guy? And the last thing I'll say about declaring yourself a Nick Guy, it means you can't just jump off the boat if something goes wrong.
Well, hold on.
I'm serious.
He's looking for the escape hatch.
Well, I'm saying
always.
It doesn't mean you can't be critical if he does something you don't like. But if you're a Nick guy, it means you're a Nick guy. You're there. You're with him.
Yes.
You know? Jack Fritz.
Yes.
Now, I know I had a journey with Nick. I thought he was doofus. You know, I thought it was never going to work. I thought that this year was going to go off the rails, and it didn't. That's why I'm a Nick guy. You feel like you have come to our side. Are you a Nick guy?
No, but that doesn't mean he hasn't grown on me. I'm growing into a Nick guy. I'm not anti-Nick.
You're not, but you're not a Nick guy.
Because I'm gonna jump off if things aren't going well here. Because I do think.
So I think that's the difference, by the way, between being a Nick guy and he grew on you a little bit.
I'm still a Nick skeptic. I'm not anti-Nick. I'm not calling for his job. Even if they lose on Sunday, I don't think I'll be calling for his job. But I still think a lot of this is talent dependent. I do. I appreciate the notes. I appreciate all that stuff. But I don't think he can do what Sean McVay did this year. I don't think he can do what some of these X's and O's guys do of get the most out of. He's getting a lot out of a very, very, very talented team. And that's great. But I still can't do this whole, well, now he's one of the best coaches in the sport kind of thing.
Well, he is.
Ish.
You mean ish?
He's ish.
He's one of the best coaches. There's no way that there's 5 coaches better than Nick Sirianni in football. Right,
I was going to say he has to be top 5,
yes,
right?
Easily.
Andy Reid, McVay, Tomlin, right?
No.
Get Tomlin the bleep out of here.
Get Tomlin out of here.
Not anymore.
8 years.
All right.
Harbaugh.
Can't live off his resume. Harbaugh's still good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Both Harbaughs?
Both Harbaughs?
You know what? Yeah. Well, listen, Jim Harbaugh is good too, but it's only been 1 year. But he's damn sure a good coach.
Right. Yeah.
He's damn sure a good coach. We know what he did in San Francisco, and look what he did his first year with the Chargers. I would go. Sean McDermott's a good coach.
Yep.
We're still putting Peyton in there. Sean Payton.
Sean Payton's a good coach. He's a good coach. Look what he did in his first year. I mean, second year with the
Broncos.
With the Broncos with a rookie quarterback coach. So I think Sean Payton's a good coach.
He's in the Shanahan mix.
But I'd put,
he's in that mix. Yeah, well, Shanahan's a good coach.
And I'd put Sirianni ahead of McDermott at this point. I would.
That's fair, yeah.
I would.
Yeah,
you know, there's been enough questions. You know, McVay, I don't think there's any questions. Andy, there's no questions.
Right.
There's been questions about McDermott.
Yes.
McDermott was on the verge of getting fired. The same way Nick was.
Yep.
The same way Nick was. And I don't hear people talking about Sean McDermott the way that they talk about Nick Sirianni.
I agree.
All right. 215-592-9494. Are you ready to officially declare yourself a
What's
Nick
our guy
guy?
in Detroit? Dan Campbell.
Dan Campbell.
Dan Campbell's a good coach, right? You
Good
believe
coach. Yes.
Yeah, again, I'll see without Ben Johnson.
What? Why is it that you need to see without? All these coaches need guys, man. What are you talking about?
Because I think it matters. I believe in Dan Campbell, but to put him in elite category as NFL head coach.
Forget about elite. Because
he's been put in that category.
He hasn't won a title yet. So I don't think he's in that title with the guys that won a title. Like McVay has gone to 2 Super Bowls with 2 different quarterbacks and won a Super Bowl.
I think Nick and Dan Campbell should be viewed in the same light.
Okay.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
That's fair. So
that's fair.
I'm just curious to see what he looks like without Ben Johnson. Again, growing on Nick, but I'm not, 10 toes in, jumping off the deep end, cannonball.
I think the difference between a Nick Guy and not a Nick Guy is a Nick Guy will be there if things get a little rough. And I think what's going on with a lot of people is, and I think you mentioned this off the show, is that people aren't hearing much about him, so they're like, yeah, he's fine.
Right.
But that is different than being a Nick Guy. It's different than truly believing he makes a difference with the Philadelphia Eagles. And if the players are winning and they are telling you that he makes a difference, to me, far be it from me to say that they're wrong.